I'll give a little introduction to Ricky, and then I'll let him take over from there. Ricky Boscarino is the creator of the art environment Luna Parc in Sandyston, New Jersey. He works in many mediums, including mosaics, ceramics, painting, and jewelry making. Luna Parc is a semi-private museum, atelier, and Ricky's private home, and it's infused with Ricky Boscarino's creative energy. It's a magical, in my opinion, it's a magical combination of Gaudi's Gűell Park in Barcelona and PeeWee Herman's PlayHouse, both considered to be one of the most unusual art environments in New Jersey. It's been featured in many publications, including the New York Times. I've had the good fortune of being to Ricky's place a number of times and meeting Ricky a few times. I met him, he was hosted at Society of Mosaic Artists at one time, and I was lucky enough to grab some of his jewelry. He'll talk about it, but he's an amazing multimedia artist. Here's one of his really cool articulated bugs, and I'm sure it doesn't show it well enough, but he can talk about his stuff. And I've got
one of my best. Right.
A very cool bee necklace. And from his, if you visit his home, which is, I think by invitation only now, right? Is that correct, Ricky?
Yeah, by reservation, right, exactly.
Reservation. That I got some cool ceramics also. So Ricky, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. So this presentation of these slides was assembled by a wonderful photographer that I know, and she did these specifically for the Mosaic conference, the SAMA, which was in the spring of 2018, I think it was. Is that correct? Do you remember? Was that it, Eileen?
Yeah, I think that was it. With the COVID, my time period's off, but yes, I think that
I know, we just subtract the year, and that wasn't 19. I think it was
you were Boston or Detroit? I can't remember. Was it Boston or Detroit?
No, it was in Nashville.
Oh, Nashville. Okay, yeah.
Right.
18.
Was it 18, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so, yes.
Oh, you know what? It might have been 2019, actually. No, it was 2019. I have it right here on my my little
Nashville
presentation.
was the last one. That's, yeah, so that was.
Oh, 2019. Okay, I know it seems like longer for some reason, but so I would like to take everyone on a tour and adventure through my home, which I call Luna Parc, and I would like to say that imagine a world where no one was concerned with the resale value of their home, and imagine in this world where freedom and self-expression was valued as a commodity and cherished, and then imagine what homes in America could be. So 30 years I embarked on a vision quest. Was the winter of 1988. I walked across a little bridge that crosses onto the property, and I walked up the driveway with my realtor, and this slide that's on, this is what I saw. And in this instant, I knew that this would be the place I would spend the rest of my life. Now, obviously, the house doesn't have anything to recommend it, but I was 28 years old, and I felt like I was on an adventure, and I felt like I would be on perpetual summer camp. So June 9th, 1989 was my closing. I stayed here that first night. I started ripping out anything that I could inside the house, all the paneling, the furniture, and I had assembled a giant pile in the morning, and it has not stopped for 32 years. So one of the most frequently asked questions is, how did I know I was going to do this, or did I have a master plan? And there really was no master plan, except that cosmic connection that I had with this house as soon as I laid eyes on it. And like I said, I knew that this would be the place I would spend the rest of my life. So the first thing I did was I painted the house kind of primary colors. Now, any normal person would have knocked this down and started from scratch, but I was in my late 20s. I needed a place to live, so that was not an option. The only option I had was to renovate the house. And because I was born into this lineage of Italian artisans, I knew that I had the personal confidence and the skills to really start transforming this into like a vision. So it started off fast and then accelerated. So the original cabin sits on 6 acres, and it's adjacent to some beautiful state forest up in the northwest corner of New Jersey. And the Appalachian Trail runs very near the house. So it's very, very scenic. The land was beautiful. Even if the house got knocked down, it was a beautiful piece of property. And I felt like I said, I was on an adventure. So another frequently asked question is, so how did I have the skills, or how did I have the confidence to do this? And I had explored with many different materials growing up, and I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and I worked with metal and ceramic, a little bit of glass. So I had already had a pretty good knowledge of all kinds of materials when I moved here. And then I acquired all kinds of things like cementing bottles, and mosaic became a very big part of my aesthetic. And cement sculpting became another very big part of the project, and certainly welding and plasma cutting. So all these combined, and that's why the house is, I refer to it as a very multimedia project, because I have so many different materials that I work with. So I must stress that I am not a hoarder. Even though people have asked if I'm a hoarder, and I said, no, absolutely not. I have a very methodical way that I collect materials, either materials that are then sort of cannibalized and worked into the house, but also objects that are curated into the museum. Okay, so now this is a recent view of the house. So the original 600 square feet of the house turned into nearly 5,000. What was just one room, one level, turned into 15 levels. So the house is filled with art objects from my travels. There was a point early on that the house was fine for what I was collecting. And then as time went on and I started traveling to foreign countries, the house started getting very, very full. So I started conceiving of this first addition to the house, which was a bathroom. So I went from one extreme to the other. I had a little outhouse that I lived with for about 6 years. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I really had enough of that. So I set out and I built the most amazing bathroom. Now, my bathroom is so famous, you just have to Google Luna Parc bathroom, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds of images of the bathroom. It was a 5-year project. And when we come to a couple slides, you'll see why it took 5 years to build it and why it's so famous. So that was 1994 to 1999. And then in 2005, I broke ground for the next addition to the house. And that was what I called my museum wing, which was all about display. So, all this facade that you're seeing right now, this is all one of the facades of what I call the museum. It is completely covered with mosaic, and there's still some areas that I still need to be working on. But like I said, it is a work in progress. The reality is this will be going on for the rest of my life. And in one of the rooms upstairs, I built a box, a wooden box. It's set into the floor with a thick piece of glass in which will be my ashes. So I will literally be in this house for the rest of my life and in perpetuity. So I had the good fortune many years ago of meeting a woman named Beatrice Wood. She was a potter, and she lived to 106. And I even told her I wanted to be just like her when I grew up. So my goal is to live to 106. And my maternal grandmother lived to 103. So that's a very good possibility. So this is, here's a good example of some of my collecting habits. So the walls, if you look really closely, you'll see that the walls are made of corks. There's about 10,000, 20,000 corks that are all nailed onto the walls. So it kind of gives you the appearance of bamboo. So when I have needed, anytime I've needed a material such as corks, I would put it on my wish list. And when I would have open house days, tours, I would have these wish lists published, and I would get so many different things that I was requesting. So I had been given tens of thousands of corks. And so I've been fortunate when I would need a certain object in abundance, I could acquire it. Another object that I have been hoarding are bowling balls. Now you see at the bottom of my sink, the feet are bowling balls, but there are bowling balls all over the property. And there are, the last count was about 800. So here's a picture. So this is my bathroom. So the bathroom is about, I think it's 150 square feet. And it features mosaic on the floors and walls. In the middle of the room, see kind of towards the bottom, that's a shower. And then I have a bidet and a urinal. And the stained glass windows depict 4 stages of life. So for me, when I learned mosaic, and I had a lot of sources, certainly Gaudi, Nicky de Sanfal, Hundertwasser. These were some great ceramists and mosaic artists in history. And it became a very big part of the aesthetic of Luna Parc. So about 3/4 of the house inside and out are covered with mosaic. So the bathroom, as you can see, is very elaborate. It took 5 years to build it. And it's one of the spaces I'd say is really definitely one of the highlights for most people. So the house is completely filled with objects from all over my travels. So this is a collection of hats from all over different countries from Asia. And so I've been, one of my real passions has been traveling to foreign countries. And I would always bring things home, or I would ship things home. So the house is literally filled with all kinds of oddities, artworks, and artifacts from all over the world. So this house was all about collecting, and it was all about display. So when I was building, I was thinking about display cases in the walls. So when you walk through, there are certain cases like this collection of flashlights in the distance. That's also a door, a hidden door that goes into the bathroom. But so the whole house is curated with collections. And my next big project will be then to start assembling all the collections into a database. So I'll have a application for museums, and every single object in the house will then have a barcode. So then everything will be accessible digitally. So when people come to visit, they can scan the barcode and get the story of whatever is going on, or whatever they see. So this collection will someday be bequeathed to my nonprofit that I founded in 2015. So it's called the Luna Parc Atelier Foundation. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. We do art education for people of all ages. Our primary focus are college age students, and we're able to host people. They stay at on the property, and they stay for maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And generally our mission is geared towards young people who are wanting to pursue a career in the arts. So we're all about hand skill training, business training, so that they can become self-supporting artists. So that's basically our mission. And while they're here, they're working on whatever projects are going on. It could be cementing bottles or mosaic. Everyone learns how to weld. So they get a really, really good crash course in whatever's going on, materials that they would have never experienced in art school either. So I think this is, I think we're stuck on this slide. I think this is, it didn't advance. So the museum that I call it is referred to as the Museum of the New Alchemy. So it makes a reference to the founders of modern chemistry. They were the alchemists, and they believed that all materials originated from gold. And through a series of processes, all materials could be turned back into gold. So in my kind of analogy of alchemy, the gold in this respect is art. So you could use all kinds of different materials, corks, glass, tile, wood, all these different materials to transform into art, which is the gold in alchemy. So the Museum of the New Alchemy is what I call my my museum. And someday, when I finally do check out, the foundation will take over. They will inherit everything and operate it as a museum, art space, and some sort of a learning institution. So for me, having my ashes here is actually very poignant, because for me to have the foundation to carry on this, the mission and to operate the museum, for me is really, really important. And one of my favorite travels has always been to visit art environments. So these are environments that individual people, they could be self-taught artists, and they could be accomplished artists, but there's a tradition of building a building an art environment using discarded materials or found objects or created objects. And I've seen so many of these pieces, these environments disappear when the creators die. So I vow this will never happen to Luna Parc. So I saw a question someone asked, was it how did I, was it the something about the round window? But that window was, it was I had that made. It was a custom made window. So when I moved here, I was only 28 years old. I did not have a lot of money for renovating this house, but I did have a few visions. And one of the things that I had to have was this giant 6-foot round window. And I really couldn't afford it at the time, but I sprung for it. And now it's a very big part of the architecture. So I didn't actually make the window, but I had it made. And it was one thing that as soon as I saw the house, that I saw that there had to be this round window in this room. So these are all photos of the more recent. These are all very recent. All of these portraits are all of my work. The more abstract ones are ones that I've acquired from other people along the way. So painting has always been a very big part of my aesthetics. Here's a perfect example of some of my my hoarding, my collections. So these are the little bread tabs for the, closing the bread bags. And these were originally, I thought I would do a giant mosaic with them. I haven't done that yet, and that may or may not happen. But for now, those big bins of those bread tabs that is the project. So building this new wing, the museum wing, was definitely a journey. It was like a spiritual journey. It was like a dream to have this space. It was a nightmare in some respect also. If anyone would like to arrange a visit, I have specific days that I have tours, and it's by reservation. I have days coming up October 2nd and 3rd, and it's all by time slot reservation. So I'm trying to keep the groups to a certain number. But you can send me an email at the end of the presentation. We'll put my email address, and everyone could send me an email if you want to set up a reservation. So now these are all little details. This is some of my ceramic work. There are vignettes and little niches all around the property, inside and out. And as grand as the house has gotten, I still feel that a lot of it is really about the objects and the details. So literally, it could take someone days to go through the whole house and see all the different sculptures that are actually attached to the house. This is a shot of my ceramic studio, which is, it's funny also that no matter how large the house has gotten, I really still spend most of the time in my studio. And it's still like my happy place is in the workshop. But the collecting definitely ends up inside the museum. So here's a shot. This is the west facade. And this is one of the harder projects. So doing the masonry work up the side of the chimney and the tile work around was, it took years. It probably took 5 years. This is a shot of the outside of my studio, my workshop, which actually is visible from another road also. And I try to keep this one a little bit more rustic looking. So that's why this one looks a little bit more kind of funky and weathered. And that's the way I keep it. So, excuse me. Many years ago, I discovered the technique of ferro cement. So ferro cement meaning metal with cement, the combination, the integration of a metal armature with cement became an art form in the middle of the 1800s. And I decided that I wanted to create a monumental entrance to the house. So this is what I call the artichoke portico. So it's the main entrance to the museum. And this was created with a metal armature, a rebar armature with a mesh. And then I bought a sprayer and I sprayed the concrete onto that armature. And actually, can we go back to that? Is that possible to go back to that slide, reverse one? I'm not sure if it is. Okay, perfect, great. So this was sprayed onto the armature with this little hopper that I bought that's uses compressed air, and then had to be completely hand troweled and sculpted. Now, eventually parts of this will be tile and then parts of it will be stained and pigmented, but it's still very startling. This is about 25 feet tall, and it was one of the most difficult projects on the whole property. It was about 3.5 tons of cement, and then the steps leading up to it were also another big giant project. So as far as like a collecting, here's the 2 food dogs I had acquired from the local Tibetan monastery, and through a whole kind of a series of a chain of different people. They asked me if I would remove these food dogs from the property because they weren't Tibetan, they were actually Chinese. They didn't want them. So when they offered them, they said, would I like them? I said, of course I would like those. So those kind of work really well with that kind of like the organic shape of the portico. So these other shots are different aspects of the addition. I see that these are kind of older photos too, because there's been a lot of progress in some of these photos also. But every season could have could be its own adventure. Do I create schematics or is that drawings? I think that said. So depends on the project. Occasionally, if something is a large scale project that I'll need some kind of assistance or even a building permit, I would have to sketch it out and sort of plan it. But for me, I love the spontaneity of projects, and especially with my tile work, my mosaic work, my favorite thing to do is to take a piece of chalk, sketch out whatever it's going to be, whatever I think, very spontaneously, and then just go for it. And some of that is just, basically confidence. I'm very confident about it, about what comes out. And I know that's kind of scary to some people, but I feel like sometimes that spontaneous line that I draw, really sometimes those are the best lines, the spontaneous ones. Here's another great example of collecting, hoarding. I was hoarding Mrs. Butterworth bottles to create a giant statue that's in the shape of Mrs. Butterworth, made of the bottles cemented together. So here's actually some other bottle art. So these were, the openings were all created with the ferro cement technique, troweling on the cement. And these bottle inserts were made by embedding the bottles into cement and then putting the cement around them. So they were rigid sections that I would pop in. And of course, this is the House of Bottle Blues. And this is a really fun pavilion. It's still not completed. It's going to go up probably another 3 or 4 feet, and I'll build a cap, like a cement cap on top of it. But this is another one I needed to put out the call for blue bottles. And once they started coming in, I was getting hundreds and hundreds of bottles. And I probably have enough right now. I still have probably 400 bottles. And I'll probably use them up in this project, in finishing it up. And that's a great project. There's my little outhouse. That was my original bathroom, which I actually have moved to a new location, but it's still very sentimental, and it's just now it's just a tool shed. But it for me, it really takes me back to my roots of how the house really began. Here's a great example. So on the left, the lower left is the original little cabin. Just to the right, kind of up the hill, the mosaic, the kind of very colorful mosaic, that's the exterior of the bathroom. So that was from 1994 to 1999. And then everything above it, and you can kind of see here also, everything now above it and all to the right is all the additions. So you can see the scale. See how small the original house was, and the 3,500 or maybe more. I haven't even measured. I don't even know what the square footage of the house is, but I'm guessing it's close to 5,000 square feet. And I had mentioned this. Most of the house is covered with mosaic and ceramic pieces. So these shapes are done. It's like a wet cut mosaic. So these are all cut in ceramic, cut in clay, and then fired. And I have a special glaze, that metallic glaze. And these other little sculptures going up the sides of the house are all sculpted and attached to all the corners of the house. All have these sculptures. So the mosaic kind of then just gets integrated within them. So all of these ceramic pieces get mounted, and then the mosaic is then constructed around it. So this expression says clavus prosignis possit in venerius moris. The keys to the symbols can be found within these walls. So that refers to the mysteries of the house and all the different puzzles and symbols that are all concealed in all the tile work and the mosaic, the ceramic sculptures. So it's something that when you study the house and all the details, there's all these different puzzles. And especially when students come to visit, I point them out and they have to go research what these things mean. So these are some of the sculptures that I created. This one in particular, these I built in the early, kind of early to mid 90s. So these are some of the original sculptures that I built on the property. And let's see, looking at my notes, sorry. And these are, yeah, here's some, this is a beautiful shot of the, one of the larger facades. So all the window trim, those are all tiles that I press, and I use a special type of clay that's usable for, suitable for exterior use. This was one of my very, very original mosaics that's about 30 years old. Not much of it, it's kind of falling apart. I'm glad to say my techniques have improved, and I've learned a lot more about materials. And now, I mean, even 30 years later, there's a lot more technology of cement. So there's a lot more products available for adhesives than there were 30 years ago. So there's a lot of this is a cast bench, and then the expression in French is along there. So this is another one of my large scale mosaics, and this one is about 18 feet tall and about I think about 12 feet wide. So it's one of the single largest. Here's a larger picture of that. It's one of the larger single mosaics on the house itself. And these are images that I've been drawing. I've done sketches of these, and I would draw these over and over, and they've translated into sculpture, into 2D work. I've done paintings of these. And so there are some reoccurring themes. And here's an example of one of the sculptures that's mounted to the corners of the house. So, yeah, so it's another. And it's funny, one of the frequently asked questions is people want to know, how does my town feel about the project? And a lot of people would like to think that I have a big ongoing feud with the town, but I actually have a great relationship with the town fathers and mothers, and they really appreciate what's been happening here. I don't think every single one of my neighbors, my immediate neighbors, is completely thrilled, but I've now been here longer than almost anyone in the neighborhood. So now if people move to the neighborhood, they already know that this house exists when they get here. So, but the house is definitely a landmark. So this is a chapel that I built in honor of my grandfather, who witnessed a miracle when he was a young man in Sicily, and he witnessed a little crippled boy being healed. So I built this in honor of his memory of the miracle in 1989. I say that was my that was the last project that I did in the 20th century. But these are other mosaics that are on the side of the house. This is an inscription of the date is when I bought the house in 1989. And here's a great view of the current facade, and it's all holding up pretty well. But I'll tell you, after 30 years, whether you like it or not, there needs to be some kind of a renovation. So I'm in the process of now going back and renovating the original little cabin. Now that I've done this giant construction project, now I have to go back and kind of fix up the original little cabin. So over the years, I couldn't even begin to estimate how many people have come as visitors to Luna Parc. I would say there had to be, honestly, probably 20,000 people over the years. And since I started opening the house in the late 90s, I think it was 1998, 97, 98 was when I actually started opening the house to the public. And it grew and grew. The last open house that I had about 1,300 people over the course of a 3-day period. So, and it's wonderful, and I love sharing the project. It's always been my intention to invite people and share the project, and school groups to come and be inspired, people of any age to come and be inspired, and do workshops, which is also something that I do to support the project, is offer workshops in mosaic, cement sculpting, and tile making. And I will offer a whole nother curriculum in the spring. So I'll have more workshops all through the spring and summer of next year. So this poem, it's visible on my website too, if it goes too quick, but it is a poem that I wrote, and it sums up all of the mysteries of the house and somewhat about the inspiration and where I found inspiration. And when a visitor comes to the house, it's all about discovering all about the house, which is hidden in all of the mosaic and ceramic sculptures all around the house, either inside or outside and attached to the house. So it ends, this is a greeting, an invitation to explore unconvention. For those basking in the light, this beckons to insight, and those emerging from the dark, a welcome from the patriarch to a curious cabinet called Luna Parc. So that's what I always hope, that people come away from here being inspired. And for me, the greatest compliment is when people tell me that they've come here and somehow altered their own environment, or in some way, even if it's just a small amount, a small way, that they somehow got inspired to alter their life.
Alice is asking, what is the story of the flashlights?
So I had a collection, a small collection years ago. Actually, I think I even had them in my teens. I had my Boy Scout flashlights, and I had acquired some flashlights, and I've always collected flashlights. And as time went on, I would find them, and I, at one point I think I have like 100 flashlights now. And then I bought someone's collection, made me like, I don't know, like a dozen or so. And so now I needed a place to put all these flashlights. So I built this display case, actually, that operates as a door. So it actually opens and closes, and it leads into the bathroom. So when the bathroom door is closed, it is a a display case.
When you take some time to stand back and reflect on this immense work, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I have a little problem of sitting still. So for me, I actually have to take stock. And I'll tell you, with the pandemic and the, quarantine, I was stuck at home, which has been great. And I would say for the first time in many, many years, probably since I've lived here, the last like 2 years or so, I've actually been able to slow down and take in and take stock of what I've created here. And it's actually very moving for me, because I've just kept going and going and moving, and almost never even thinking about what it really took to create this. And so I've been, I would say that I'm really especially grateful now, more than ever, that I was able to accomplish this, and that, this is all funded, basically self-funded by my artwork. So I've been very grateful that I have this ability to manifest. Let's say I make some, like a ceramic piece or a piece of jewelry, that I can sell that, support myself, and keep this project going, because that's really all that supports it, really, is my artwork. So I'd say more than ever, I'm feeling extremely grateful for being able to live here and be supported by many, many people. So, but
How do you purchase works of yours? Is there a site?
yes, actually, so lunaparc.com. No, Luna Parc is LUNAPARC. And actually, I'll make a little quick segue into that. So when I was, I spent my senior year in college abroad in Rome, Italy. And outside of the city limits was a little amusement park, very underwhelming, really, from what we know as amusement parks here in the US. But it was called Luna Parc, LUNAPARC. It was very specifically park with a C. And when I was trying to figure out a name for my house, I remembered this little amusement park, and it was really sentimental. And I thought, what a sweet little name. And it wasn't until years later that I even knew of the most famous amusement park in history, really world history, was Luna Parc, Park with a K, which was part of Coney Island. Yep, I have a really great selection of jewelry and ceramic work on my website. So lunaparc.com. And I ship all over the world, in fact. So that's a really good overview. There's a lot of work on the website. So, but it's categorized. There's the jewelry and the ceramic work and paintings.
I'll share it with the guild also. I'll send them send it in print.
That'd be great. Thank you. Great.
Yep.
So
I have a question, Ricky. You've had the house for about 30 years, is that correct?
yeah, I'm going into my 33rd year, actually.
And have you, when you do all these things, are you doing them by yourself, or do you have helpers, or what?
Well, I don't do most of the large projects single-handed, but I do have I have the students. So now, so with the not through the nonprofit, we host the art students. So usually I'll have an intern, or maybe 2 or 3 actually interns. They don't overlap. They're always here for maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So that's been really great, because I'll have some really super talented kids, young people, or kids, they're not kids. And I have several young studio assistants that will help out with all kinds of projects. So I used to do everything myself, and that was partly out of necessity. I couldn't afford to hire someone to do, to help do things like tiling. But now, I've gotten to a point where I can afford to hire some other artists, young artists, to help. And also the scale of this project is colossal. So I really can't do this alone. There's a lot of projects. It's impossible. I just can't do it by myself. So, for a lot of the larger projects, I definitely have probably more assistance now than I ever have. And I find that the older I get, I need someone to be mixing cement. I mean, I could still sling a 60-pound bag without too much effort. But when it gets to, 10, 12, or 20 bags, I can't do that anymore like I used to. So I do rely on some younger brawn lately. Right.
Any other questions, anybody, before we take a little phone tour?
I was wondering where in Sicily your family is from.
So there's a little town called Comiso. So Comiso is sort of like Sicily, sort of triangular shaped with a point at the bottom. So it's sort of like it's inland, but a little bit in from the point next to a larger city called Ragusa. And so my father's side, the Boscarinos, came from this little town in Comiso. And when my grandfather was living, we had a fairly close tie with the old country. I spent some time there. My sister spent some time there, and my parents only have been there once. But it's just a little town. It's very kind of underwhelming, but it's my roots. Our family came from there, and one of the common names there is Boscarino. So Comiso, Sicily is where is our roots. Now that's on my father's side. My mother's side are somewhere outside of Naples, so sort of southern central Italy on my mom's side. But we definitely identified more with the Sicilian relatives.
I get it.
Okay. So
Thank you so much.
great, thank you. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip around now, and okay, so I'm going to try not to move too much because I know there's a little bit of a lag in the. So here's my kitchen, and like you can see, here's the part of the wall of corks. Literally thousands and thousands of corks. And then, okay, so, and then I'll make a segue. I'm going to go directly into, oops, sorry, blocking that. So I don't know, there's not much light in here this time of day, but you can kind of see, let's see, here's, so the bathroom is still many people's highlight. Let's see. Okay, here's and it is a functional bathroom. It's really, well, it is. It's the only bathroom in the house. And it's funny, people come here and they want to see. They ask me, well, where do I live? And I said, well, I live here. So, okay. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm going to go turn on a few other lights. Now, Nancy, if you can let me know, is my reception okay down here still?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, everyone. Okay. Because this is many times this is the point where I start losing a reception. Okay, so another frequently asked question. People want to know, well, where do all these ideas come from? And I equate this with the miracle of creation. So, oops, sorry. So behind me is a mosaic. Oh, here, you know what? I'll flip around this way. It'd be easier to see it. Okay, so here we have. This is my large scale mosaic. This is in what I call my cantina. Here are fallopian tubes and ovaries. And here's the ovum being fertilized. And then we have, well, it's hard to see. There's a cell in division, and then we have a fetus on the wall. And so people ask, they want to know, where do all these ideas come from? So I equate this to the miracle of fertilization. So the concept comes to me, so that you have conception, you have the gestation period. So that's like the cell in division. So where things are kind of, you're ruminating, you're trying to figure out the plan, and then it pops out. So the birth is sort of like the realization of the process. So I kind of go back to this miracle of creation, and this theme reoccurs all throughout the house. There are sperm and fallopian tubes and fetuses around the house, and so it all refers to the miracle of creation and inspiration. So this mural isn't done yet. This has been kind of in the works for I don't know, 15 years, but it never quite got done. But it will someday. But it's really pretty startling. So I'm going to move up now, and I'm going to come here. Okay, this is my my library. So these are all my art books for inspirations. I have some interesting artifacts. So I know it's kind of dark in here. There's actually not much light. These are some pieces of the Berlin Wall that I collected when I was in Berlin many years ago. Here's a letter from, I don't know if you can see this, from Rosemary Woods. And when I was 11 years old, I sent a letter to Richard Nixon, and then I got a letter from the White House signed by Rosemary Woods. So that's one of my favorite objects in the house. But there's collections of Native American pottery, other art and artifacts. Here's one of my chandeliers that I built from antlers from a friend of mine. And let's see, so we'll move out into the big atrium. Let's see, let me try to get some light in here. So as I was talking earlier about my hall of hats. So in wherever I've been, all over Asia, Northern Africa, all over Europe, I've always collected a hat from the culture that wherever I've been. So this display case shows all different hats from, let's see, from Tibet, from Mongolia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, China. So for me, I feel a hat speaks of the culture. And so I've always collected a hat from wherever I've traveled. So if you can see, there's different mannequins wearing hats. Now, let's see, I'm going to go up to level 1. Oh, no, we're on level 1. We're going to go up to level 3 now. So, so here's the stair risers are all yardsticks. They make very good wainscoting, so great. Okay, hopefully I'll be able to. Okay. Now, another thing I've been doing is I've been creating these wood floors. This is made of poplar. I kind of refer to this as a wood mosaic. Sorry, I'm going to turn on some lights. Hold on one second. Okay, here's a great example. So this is one of my wood mosaic floors. So these are all pieces of poplar, individual pieces of poplar that I cut and reassemble and then nail down. So this is one of the more elaborate ones. And right here is, this is my final resting spot. Okay. So in this glass case, let's see if I can get a little closer. So it's like a little living room set up. And so the foundation is then will be instructed. I've already named someone to take care of this, my custodian. And he's instructed to get my ashes into this little capsule and then arrange the furniture on top of the ashes. So I will be on display, and then the living room will then get arranged. So I'll be like a carpet on under the furniture. So yeah. So now I chose this spot in the house very specifically because these are a set of doors that I bought in China and had them shipped home. Here, I'll step back in a sec. So they're about 11 feet tall. And this is still my biggest purchase, the biggest single object that I was able to buy abroad, and then I was able to get them home. I had them shipped home. So I figured what a perfect place for my final resting place to be right here in front of the giant great doors from China. All right, so now we go through these giant doors, and then we come into the big room, and so.
Excuse me, Ricky.
Yes.
Do you know anything about the history of those doors, how old they are or anything?
Yes, so they are between 150 and between 150 and 200 years old. They it wasn't specific, but they were definitely over 150, but they are definitely under 200 because there's a point where antiquities from China are not allowed to leave the country. And that's from a point during the before the Qing dynasty was anything during the Qing dynasty was allowed to be exported, but anything after was not. So, but these came from a fairly well-off family's compound. So these doors would be in the front of the family compound. This wouldn't be the door to the houses themselves. So you would enter this, you'd be in a courtyard, and then the different houses would then be inside. Now, these two rosettes up here would signify that the patriarch of the family was in the military, and he would be, say, the equivalent of, say, a 2-star general. So he would be actually fairly high ranking. And what's really quite interesting and actually sort of tragic is that, you know, someone of that position had a home that had been obviously torn down, and all these amazing artifacts are basically being sold off. So there was a point in when I was there, I got these in 2006, and China was going through a huge basically like a renovation, but they were also tearing down a lot of what was really old traditional China in order to host the Olympics the following year. So unfortunately, there was a lot of buildings and neighborhoods. The Hutong, the neighborhood, were torn down to modernize, and it was unfortunate. Like there was so many of these types of artifacts that were torn down and basically exported all over the world. So, and there is some writing, some old, I don't know if it's old graffiti or what, but I haven't been able to have it translated. But still one of my most favorite things in the whole house are these doors. So here we are in what I call the ballroom. So this is a room that serves as a classroom. It's my living room. I've had seminars and poetry events in here. I'm going to turn on some more lights. And some of the space is really quite grand. The ceiling is 14 feet. And as you can see, it's literally covered with all sorts of artifacts. There are display cases built into the walls. Here's my.
Are the fireplaces functional?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I built this fireplace, and this is all stones from the property. This is a, it's called a Rumford style fireplace invented by Benjamin Franklin. So it's a very shallow firebox. So when the fire is on, it throws heat into this room, and that fireplace will heat this entire room if it's on long enough. So yep. So it's very dramatic in here. So now let's see. Let me see if how much. I'm not sure how much further I can go, but here's a collection of bird nests from the property into a display case that's built into the banister. And other display cases. And here we're going to go into a room. Okay, so the ballroom is level 3. Here is a room that is called the Nature Lab. Now, some people don't like this room because they think it's kind of creepy, but so I had a point in my in high school that I was actually looking to go into science as a career. And so I've always collected specimens and insects. So this is one of my big rooms for inspiration. So it's filled with taxidermy, bones, rocks and minerals, and all kinds of other displays. So, yeah. Now I've still retained my interest and love of science. So this room serves, say, if I needed to refer to something, say, if I needed to actually see like a dragonfly, if I needed to look at the anatomy, I can refer to these specimens. Or if I need anything about bones, look at bones for any kind of reason, I've got everything here at my disposal. So let's see. So as you can see, I have 5,000 square feet, and it's completely filled with all kinds of artifacts. Plus, I love anything, any mid-century furniture and lamps. I have this problem of buying lamps. I have lamps from all different eras, from early 20th century all the way up, well, like probably to the 80s would be the latest. And here's another floor, one of my mosaic floors. So here's something funny. So when I was talking about things that are hidden, like hidden messages. So here we have in this little strip right here, this black and yellow dot dash. This is Morse code. And usually I will just tell people they can figure out, there's my cat Lily. This in Morse code says, "I got you, babe." So like I said, there's all different messages and all hidden throughout the house. So let's see. Okay, and I'll turn on the lights over here. So here's one of my favorite new installations. This is still in the works. So this is my my corner of my telephone collection. So all of these that are mounted on the wall, all the wall mounted phones will be hooked up to a keyboard. So you could actually play the keyboard and it'll ring the phones. So you could sort of like compose a song using the phones, the ringing of the phones. And then this, all these desk phones will actually be hooked up to a device where you could pick up a phone. So you pick up a phone, you can dial an extension, and on the other end will be a message. So it'll be like singing or poetry or some kind of like some message on the other end. So any of these phones will be operating where you can pick them up and dial an extension. So these are two kind of complicated installations that are still in the works. I'm still working out some of the mechanics, but I've been assured with some of my electronic friends that it's all possible and it's all doable. Oh, of course, and a mosaic floor in front of the telephones. Now, let's see. I'm not sure if we can go. I'm going to try to go up one more level. And let's see if this works. I'm not sure if I can get away with this. So this is the music room. It's a little dark in here, but and as you can see, here's the top of the portico. So outside the window is the very top of that giant cement sculpture that we were looking at earlier. And that's also right near the clock outside the window. And of course, collections. Sorry, it's not very light in here. Collections of every size and shape. And we'll get a good view of the mosaic floor from up here. So we just went up as high as level 5. And that's about as high as we're going to be able to go. Oh, and I think my little cat's going to do a little trick for us. Oh, there she goes. So she hops up on this little ball, and we do a little circus. She does a little circus act. So I'll get a good picture of her sitting on top of her ball. Come on. So great. So that's about that's the house. That's the house in a nutshell. But it's definitely there's a lot of levels. There's a lot of layers, and really the only way to experience it is to come in person. So. Like I said earlier, October 2nd and 3rd will be the next days to visit. And then hopefully there'll be days in November And then that may be all that I can do for the rest of the year, because as soon as there's snow and ice on the ground, it's very, it's a little bit treacherous here. So, but I'll pick up again probably by early to mid-May. I'll start doing tours again for next year. So,
How about workshops?
workshops, I'll start probably also around the same time, probably mid-May. And I'll have a whole curriculum next year of tile, mosaic tile, and cement sculpting. And I could do private classes too. So if you as a group, if you want to get, say, 10 people together, if you can get 10 people, I could run a private course like a mosaic class just for your group also. So a lot of times I'll do groups such as yourselves will arrange a special workshop for you. So that's very doable.
That's cement and laying things in it, found objects in it.
Oh yeah, so we could do, I do a ferro cement technique. I also do a faux bois, the false wood technique. So I provide an armature, and everyone will make a planter, and we do this a texture, so they actually look like wood. So faux bois is a pretty popular subject that I've been doing lately as well. But they can all be embellished. They can also they can have objects kind of cemented into it as well. So so that'll.
Fabulous.
Yeah, they're really fun. The cement workshops are great, and they're very physical. Like they're very much, you really get involved, and everyone will then go home with a project. So any other questions or insights anyone want to ask about?
Do you intend to add any more onto the house museum or anything, or is this going to be it?
I have told myself 5,000 square feet is more than any one person needs. But I mean, I am still collecting, and that'll never change. Where I do need more space in my studio. So my studio is a separate building. It's set away from the house. It's in the woods a little bit, and that's where I could use. So if I'm gonna add on to anything, I would definitely add on to my workshop more than anywhere. So, but I don't think I'll really need any more space inside the house. I mean, it's only, I live here with, cats, and that's about all that we need. But
You have the guest house as well?
yeah, so next door is the what we call Crescent Moon Cottage, where we house the visiting artists and the interns. So, and it's 8.5 acres altogether. So it's a fairly nice, not a giant piece of property, but it's a fairly nice piece of property. So I have all the outside also. So and that's there's different vignettes and sitting areas all throughout the whole property, where there's like little living rooms set up, little benches with tables and plantings. So there's all these all around the property. So there's a lot of places where, I mean, even that I could go and sit or entertain. So that's why I don't think I need any more space as far as the house is concerned, but all these other little areas, they're little destinations, I'm still developing.
Ricky, if we wanted to set up a tour with you in October, how would that work?
Yeah, so so what we could do is we'd figure out a day and a time, and for a group like yours, like when private groups, the benefit is that the entire house would be open and accessible, whereas when I have the scheduled public days, there's most of the house is accessible, but there's some, the upper levels are not open. But for a private tour, yeah, the whole house is all accessible. So yeah, we just agree on a day and a time, and yeah, come down. And many times some groups are coming a distance, if you could bring your lunches, and we could have lunch somewhere on the on the grounds or inside the house. And usually with that also we have a little a Q&A period as well. So we'll do the tour and like a discussion about art or life or whatever.
That sounds really great.
Right. Yep.
I think we'll probably be in touch with you at some point.
Sure. Yeah. October might be a little tricky. I'm going to be away for a good part of the month, but then November, as long as November is still, there's enough, oops, sorry. As long as November is still, the weather stays nice and there's no snow or ice. Yeah, I'll continue tours into the fall, into November as well. So, and if not, then certainly as soon as I start up again in May, we can do something for sure.
That sounds good.
That'd be great.
Fantastic.
What are you collecting now?
Oh, good question. So, so I have three things that I'm hoarding: license plates, wooden yardsticks, and of course bowling balls. So those are really the only three things. License plates more than anything, because I'm starting to using them as siding on my workshop and some other parts of the house. And not even old ones. I don't need antique ones, but the newer from from 1970s onward, 80s or
Are
so.
you cutting them?
Sometimes I'll have to fit them around the windows, but sometimes they do get cut. But a lot of times they'll just be whole and they're overlapping like fish scales. So so it's my version of aluminum siding. And then you saw the yardsticks also get attached. So yardsticks, license plates, bowling balls. Those are really the only three things that I'm actively hoarding right now.
I assume you visited Cuba, the town.
No, I haven't, but I do know of Jose Fuster. We've actually been in contact. He knows of Luna Parc, and I've I know of him, but I haven't been to Cuba yet. But we know of each other. We're going to meet someday for sure. Yep.
Ricky, have you ever been to Lucas, Kansas?
Oh, no, the Garden of Eden. I haven't. I don't think I've ever actually been to Kansas, but I know of that installation also.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, I'm going to visit. It's called the Passaquan, which is in southern Georgia, and there's a couple other environments in Georgia that I'll be visiting in a few weeks actually. But I do know the one in Lucas for sure.
Yeah, they have the world's biggest toilet bowl there. They also have really great bathrooms there too. It's called the grassroots art capital of Kansas. That's probably a dubious title, but it's really a cool and funny place. You would love it.
That sounds great. Yeah.
They would love you.
Yeah, they might even know of Luna Parc actually. So I might be a celebrity if I go.
Ricky, I wanted to know about your workshops. How long do they last? Are they a few days or a week or?
Yeah, generally, the mosaic workshops are a single day, and then the cement workshops are. I try to keep them all 2 days maximum. Occasionally, if they're a really complicated project, they'd be 3 day. But I'm thinking that the 2 day workshops have actually been a lot easier for most people. So I'm kind of tailoring all the workshops so that they're no more than 2 days. Okay. So that makes it much more doable for most people. But a lot of them are actually just single days, and it's like a crash course. Like the mosaic workshops, it's a crash course in beginner mosaic. And so everyone goes home with a panel, and they've always been great. They're really a lot of fun. I really enjoy teaching them.
Thanks.
Right.
Mhm.
Any other questions out there?
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's really
Absolutely
been a
my pleasure.
Fabulous.
And I can say from personal experience, you have to see this place.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers that really do not translate. I've tried to do as much as I can on my website as far as the online tour, but it really doesn't portray all the layers and the levels that are everything that's going on here for sure. So, but I hope everyone comes to visit, and yeah, if it works out to do a private tour, that'd be great. And in the meantime, I do have these tours by reservation. I think you're probably at least maybe 2 hours, most people.
Yeah.
Right. Great. At lunaparc.com, Ricky with a Y, park with a C.com. If anyone has any other questions, anything you want to ask specifically, feel free to send me an email. I always check email.
Thanks so much. You were really brilliant. I really enjoyed it.